without much ado, let me invite another doyen of the IT industry in India, Mr. Sanjay Jaju. He has had a long stint as a IT secretary in the government of Andhra Pradesh when Andhra Pradesh and Telangana were together. And under his guidance, Elets held E-India event, which was a big event which we did almost 15 years back. And he has worked in several departments of the government, both state and center. And right now he leads the defense production department and at the Ministry of Defense, and he's the additional secretary there. And his work in this department has been exemplary, and actually he's going to receive a Prime Minister's Award on the 21st of this month. So it's a great occasion to have him with us. So let us give him a big applause and welcome on the stage. Sanjay ji, on the stage, please. Thank you.
My dear friend Ravi Gupta, of course my association with Ravi has been decades long. My another very dear friend Abhishek, who's been part of the Digital India journey, and always feel good to see him. Sri Sunil Gopinath. Ladies and gentlemen, the topic for the day is AatmaNirbharta, and all of you would agree that when it comes to AatmaNirbharta in defense, it's not just an economic imperative, it's actually a strategic imperative. And I keep saying this in multiple events, that the strength of the country's military is not decided by what you hold in your inventory, buying from wherever you get it. The strength of the military is decided by the industry that's backing you. Industry that can produce and meet your demands at the shortest possible notice. Because otherwise you'll keep having all kinds of equipment in your armory, and then eventually you'll realize that one day when the war happens, somebody will deny you the spare part, somebody will deny you a software, or somebody might even interject a malware into your software, and you'll be very happy spending thousands of crores and millions of dollars and billions of dollars, while in the end use you will be there, nothing. So that's why we say, that going forward, no imports. This has been the cornerstone of our defense production strategy now. And it also comes in from the confidence that we have in our industry, that our industry can produce, provided you give them the opportunity, anything and everything. I think we have seen this in case of COVID. I mean, there were days in not very far back when even for the basic vaccines we used to depend on the world. COVID has shown that we could not just produce a world-class vaccine, we can produce multiple kinds of vaccines of different platforms and different generations. And something similar is happening now in the defense scenario. If you're looking at land systems, we produce world-class guns, we produce world-class tanks. If it's air systems, we have a world-class fighter, Tejas, a 4th generation fighter. We have helicopters of all kinds. We have the advanced light helicopter, the light combat helicopter, smaller versions, the light utility helicopter. All kinds of drones and their payloads are now being made in our country. When it comes to naval platforms, entire range of vessels starting from a small interceptor craft to offshore patrol vessels to destroyers to submarines to aircraft carrier. We manufacture everything within our country. Electronics, all kinds of radars being manufactured, various kinds of reconnaissance systems are being manufactured, software defined radios are being manufactured. And when I say manufacture, it's not just manufacture, are being designed, developed and manufactured. You know, getting some technology from somewhere and producing it is one way, but designing your own stuff, developing your own stuff has its own connotations, and that's where our entire direction of AatmaNirbharta is. And in missiles, we manufacture various kinds of missiles, surface to air, short range, long range, intercontinental. So it's the entire bouquet of items being manufactured and designed within our country. And I think that is very important, because we look at all this not just from the perspective of meeting our own requirements, but now even we look at it from the perspective of meeting the demands of our friendly foreign countries. Creating a committee of nations that depend on our products. And it has its own imperative. It's a huge diplomatic gain that the country gains if your platforms are there in that particular country. Their dependence on us for spare parts, their dependence on us for softwares is all going to be there, and that's not just a business proposition. That means our association will become long term. Our alignments are going to be long term, and I think that is what is going to help. And that's why it's very important that countries have self-reliance and AatmaNirbharta in sectors as critical as defense. In fact, multiple steps have been taken, and I don't think this is a forum of people from the industry, but otherwise if there was a forum from the industry, I keep saying that there are multiple initiatives which have been taken to buttress this resolve of AatmaNirbharta in defense. Of course, you can go to all our tweet feeds and etc. You will find all the details, but if I have to narrate those things quickly in an order, that's as we do it in the parliamentary questions, I can say the first and the foremost has been that we have put a complete ban on foreign imports. If you want to buy it still, then you will require the approval of Raksha Mantri. A very important step. So you can't even buy a nut and a bolt. You have to go and seek approval of Raksha Mantri if you have to buy anything from outside. It's a huge change, fundamental change. You might have also seen we have been coming up with something called as positive indigenization list. Earlier we used to call it negative list, but we thought we'll call it positive list. And this positive list is, we issued 3 positive lists so far: 101 items, 107 items, and 101 items again. So it puts you somewhere around 309 items, platforms, on which we have said from a particular date there will be an embargo on their purchases from outside. That means the industry is given a clear signal that look, from this date onward I am not going to buy it from outside. You have the opportunity to develop and design and manufacture within the country during this period, and whenever time comes they are going to buy it from you. Simple, straight. These are big platforms, but the smaller platforms or subsystems, assemblies, components, they are also, we have issued positive indigenization list. Earlier we issued a list of 2,500 items which are small subsystems components. Recently we have also issued another list of 351 items, and now recently another list of 107 has been issued. All this gives a clear signal to the industry that look, these are the items which are going to be procured only domestically. So it makes huge sense. As defense goes, defense is one segment where you can't go and buy things off the shelf. I mean, these are not like detergents and powders which are available in any alternate shop. In defense, sometimes you have to co-develop and co-create systems because they are not available. And when you co-create systems, you have to sit with the user, and the user and the producer, or the user and the developer have to sit together, do iterations, come to a firm conclusion that this is what is required and this can meet their demands. So for energizing these co-creation efforts, we have created multiple opportunities. A significant one is the make route, the make chapter, under which we co-create such technologies and products in association with the industry. In some cases, we even give money for prototypes. In some cases, we give them clear assurance that if you develop it successfully, we are going to buy from you. So a lot of products are being developed under this category. You might have also seen during the recent budget announcement this year that now 25% of defense R&D budget is going to be spent through industry-led effort. A very significant change that has been announced this year. Earlier all this was being done through DRDO, but now we have said that we are going to permit industry, or we are going to enable industry to manufacture and design such products, and 25% of the overall R&D budget is earmarked for that. It's again a huge confidence laid on the banks of the industry. Another initiative for which we are being awarded the Prime Minister's Award for Excellence in Public Administration day after is a project called IDEX, Innovations for Defense Excellence. Innovations for Defense Excellence has actually been launched to bring startups to the defense establishment, close to the defense, solve military problems. Earlier, there was no way a startup could engage with the military brass. IDEX has been created to bridge this gap. So IDEX not just provides incubation support, we also provide funding, and eventually we also give them procurement through the system. And IDEX has now been 4 years old, almost exactly 4 years old. I would say 11th April 2018 we launched it. And today you can imagine what's happening. I mean, we have 22nd of this month, we are launching a mega event in which the 6th round of Defense India Startup Challenge is being launched. So you have 5 rounds already done. The winners of the 5th round are being announced. Another project called IDEX Prime is being launched, in which we are providing bigger and larger support. So now we have multiple contracts, close to 100 contracts with the startups, and this was the first time that startups are producing complicated stuff that was earlier thought could not be done. So what I always say is the cornerstone of AatmaNirbharta is actually 2 words: self-belief. Earlier, things which we were procuring left, right and center from outside are now being developed and manufactured within the country. What has changed? Yes, multiple policies have changed, no doubt. But the fact is, what has changed is self-belief. Now, isn't it look, ironical that our own chaps, when they go out of the country, they're becoming leaders in their own right, they're entrepreneurs in their own right, big companies are led by our Indian CEOs. And why is it that when it comes to these guys staying within the country, we don't find such transformations? I think the answer was possibly the ecosystem. Yes, that's being improved now, but I think the biggest answer was possibly the self-belief. Now that self-belief is being rekindled, actually AatmaNirbharta is now going to be relying on the shoulders of these first generation entrepreneurs. I have 2 daughters who are in, one of them is passed out, one of them is passing out of IIT. And when I ask them, what is it the top guys are doing in the IIT now when they come out of the college? Because when we were there at that time, all of us were hankering for a civil service job or some MS course outside India, work in some multinational, work in some big company. But now the answer is no. All of them are planning to have their own businesses. They're not seeking jobs, they are planning to create jobs. And I think this is what a vicious cycle coming out of a vicious cycle into a virtuous cycle does. And I think this is where our country is now in safe hands. 1995 unicorns, as they say, hundreds of Sunicorns, many of them even are decacons or whatever those numbers are which are called as. I think all this is showing that it's possible for our younger generation to meet the demands of our country. And when we say AatmaNirbharta, don't be under any illusion that we are saying that we want to close the doors of our country. No, it doesn't mean protectionism. It doesn't mean that we are not going to buy anything, any component that is available off the shelf outside India, even that also which is not possible for us to produce within the country at a reasonable price, which would still manufacture in our country. No. AatmaNirbharta does not mean protectionism. Those days are all gone. We are a close-knit global country, one village as they call it, one world, one village. But the fact remains that when it comes to defense, if something can be denied at a given point, it's important that that item should be manufactured and designed within the country. I think it's this whole concept of denial. So that is what is the cornerstone of defense. So friends, it's a very exciting phase in the defense manufacturing within the country. About few years back, few means just 7-8 years back, 70% of our demand for defense was being met through imports. The coin has now been flipped. Only 30% of our demand is being met from outside. 5 years back, our defense exports used to be a paltry 1500 crore. If I do apple to apple similar product stuff like that, this year we have recorded the highest ever turnover of 12,000 crores. 8 times increase in the defense exports. How is this happened? Favorable policy ecosystem, but importantly, faith in the abilities, capabilities and capacities of our industry, unshackling their entrepreneurship, re-energizing their entrepreneurship, I think is been the key towards AatmaNirbharta in defense. So my gratitude to Elets and Ravi for calling me here. Used to be part of his speaker list during my IT days, but very happy that I got this opportunity to talk to you again. Thank you very much. I will be leaving. If you have any question or something, I can definitely supplement if you have any. Otherwise, I have an office duty to attend, so I will be leaving shortly, immediately actually.
Any questions from the audience? Anyone wishes to?
You are from? Bank of Baroda.
Us bankers to come in and help this ecosystem to further develop.
So a startup ecosystem actually is very greatly dependent on the ecosystem actually, the ecosystem around. And what is the ecosystem for a startup? Of course, for a startup to become an enterprise, of course you require an idea, because without an idea, what are you going to be creating and what is it that you're going to be selling? After you got the idea, you require some incubation support, because not everything can be done by you. You require support of the friends, you require support of peers, you require even support of a basic infrastructure of say rapid prototyping, stuff like that. So we call it the incubation support. In defense, of course, it's much more complicated because buyers are monopsony. So you also require some order assurance from those who are going to buy you, because you're not going to create a market for defense products. But you also require sometimes some support in terms of research grant, if it is again defense, because you may not recover everything. So in IDEX we provide that. But most importantly, a good startup ecosystem relies very heavily on the financial support in the ecosystem, be it in the form of equity or be it in the form of debt. Now how is it that startups are now raising money? I heard that the total market capitalization of our startups now, all put together, is 1/10 of the overall market capitalization of the country. I mean, a startup with absolutely no great brick and mortar infrastructure has now more valuations than the bigger players with multiple shops and brick and mortar, because the market looks in them with a bigger potential to earn money in the future. So now, what can a bank do? You should be able to support them for debts. You should be able to support them for maybe, if you have your own equity arm, invest in the startups, because this is what you can do. And it's important that we invest in startups with a belief that some of them are going to fail. Don't be under any illusion that all the 100 guys who create businesses are all going to be successful. Businesses will become good, better, or even will become bankrupt one day. So we have to be prepared for all that, but when it comes to a risk and return paradigm, this is how you will have to figure out where the startups are. So going forward, this complete ecosystem is what is going to be required if we have to create this entrepreneurial system within our country. And it looks that we are moving in the right direction. We have arguably the world's third largest startup ecosystem now, and it's a very, very healthy sign. It's a very healthy sign.
Sanjay,
Thank you.
I have a question that what is the role of IT industry, and opportunity for the IT industry in this?
So IT has huge. That's why when I was talking about various platforms, when I said land, air, naval, missiles, I deliberately used the fifth segment, which is the digital electronics. In fact, in our Def Expo, which we did in Lucknow in 2020, our tagline was digital transformation of defense. And in fact, our entire India pavilion, if you had an opportunity to visit, if you haven't, but you can always go to the YouTube and find all the videos. Our entire India pavilion was about digital transformation of defense. And I still remember, because I had curated that entire pavilion, we had multiple segments put out, which included opportunities in electronics, because a lot of electronics go into every defense platform. It's embedded in every defense platform, be it land, air, naval, everywhere you have electronics. Electronics directly there in the form of virtual reality and augmented reality. Now with the unarmed space, or the unmanned space coming in, and with artificial intelligence coming in, again multiple platforms are getting embedded with various softwares and algorithms, again AI dependent. So augmented reality, virtual reality is also required for simulation, for training, again a huge role. So if one has to put out the segments, it's huge. The opportunities in IT and electronics are huge, because every system that we use in defense actually has software and electronics in it. So it's a huge potential, and we should leverage. In fact, I keep saying that next gen war is not going to be fought through the conventional systems. In fact, if you look at the current Ukraine-Russia conflict, of course I am not an expert on that, so it's off the record, but the fact is the current conflict has very clearly shown that all the assumptions that, say, Russia has made or anybody has made about the war in Ukraine actually have been proved wrong. That means the plan A, plan B, plan C situation, which is generally envisaged, everything is proved wrong, which means that the next gen war is not going to be around conventional lines. When Armenia-Azerbaijan fight took place, I think Azerbaijan had the great advantage of making use of these drones, and the biggest fighters or biggest military platforms were either destroyed or made completely inactive with the use of drones. So the next gen war is not going to be on kinetic. The next gen war is going to be non-kinetic. And which is what we say now, that if India has to position itself 25 years down the line, on the kinetic we might just become some kind of a niche player at best, because here we are chasing, we are already behind. I mean, world has produced the 5th generation fighters, we are still at the 4th. People have produced helicopters that can carry 40 people, we still have some 6 people going on our helicopters. So we'll take time to go there. But on the non-kinetic, which means everything, when I said non-kinetic, it also includes cyber. Now why do you think you require a fighter if you can disable the entire electrical system or electric grids by interjecting or introducing some software or some malware? So cyber attacks, cyber defense, all these asymmetric methods of warfare are going to be very, very critical and important going forward. In fact, if one has to hedge one's bet, one would say that 2/3 of our investment now should be on non-kinetic, and 1/3 only should be on kinetic, because the next gen war is not going to be fought by the troops moving through international borders. It might be fought by robots which will move on the land borders. Now why should you risk a fighter if the same job can be done by an unarmed or by unmanned aerial vehicle? The entire war in Afghanistan, how many people did US lose? Hardly any. While there were so many losses they incurred when Vietnam war happened. Why? Because this time they fought the entire war through unmanned systems. There this complete, removal of humans from the game altogether. So I think this is what we should be looking at when it comes to the next gen war.
I had one question. Sunil from Rakuten. Thank you for your inspiring words. One question is, if you look at the value chain of the different elements to defense tech, right, from hardware to software systems, materials, manufacturing and so on, where do you see the low-hanging fruits in the next 3 to 5 years for transforming to AatmaNirbharta?
Of course, very difficult to say, because defense is not a low-hanging business, by the way. I keep saying that. I mean, a lot of people, because defense production, our job is to bring in investment, but whenever I make a pitch for investment, I always put a small caveat and a red herring that, look, defense is slightly complicated. I keep saying that. It's not selling detergents and biscuits. I mean, you have to understand that it's a very limited market. Either you can sell to our government or you can sell to somebody else's government. But then Even the export is governed by export control restrictions. You can't sell everything anywhere. At the same time, you also cannot sell within the country because this is a licensed business. You can't be allowing you to sell an artillery gun to a terrorist here in the country, right? So it's all like a forbidden space. But the fact is, because there are so many restrictions, limited number of players, returns are huge. Now, why do you think we fly a fighter plane at say 1500 crores? If I have to just wait by the lohe ka bhav, to kuch nahi niklega. But that means the intellectual property is being amortized for lesser number of equipment, isliye bahut महंगा बिकता है. If you are talking in terms of the low hanging fruit, I think electronics look like a good area to me. I'll give you a small example. Most of our challenges when it comes to IDEX are around electronics and tweaks in technology. Like for example, recently a project which has become an important product for us, something called a see-through armor. Now when you are sitting in a tank or say in an armored personnel carrier, you don't know what is happening outside, right? Because ultimately it's a bulletproof shield within which you are. Earlier क्या करते थे, उसको बाहर देखना है तो एक यहाँ से पेरिस्कोप टाइप लगाया और यहाँ से उसमें से देख रहे हैं बाहर क्या हो रहा है. This is how you are getting your situational awareness. But now your situational awareness is easily possible by making use of various kinds of payloads which are cameras, IR sensors, electromagnetic sensors, electro-optic sensors. So if somebody could design all this and put it on these so that the person inside can look at his entire surrounding with a complete 360-degree situational awareness, won't it be great? So this was our first challenge. I mean, one of the challenges that we had launched. Startups have done this. In fact, somebody has gone even one step up. Instead of giving a feed on a small computer, he has put on him this set. So now when he keeps moving like this, he gets a complete view of what is happening. So isn't it great, right? So you're getting a complete 360-degree situational awareness of what's happening outside. Something which was being done with some periscope, bioscope, I don't know what kind of those equipments were, but analog devices. So this is how digital can be considered as a very low hanging fruit. See, there are one shift that has happened is defense brought in a lot of inventions during the late 1900s. That means the early part of the 20th century, maybe the later part of the 20th century. Internet, radars, lasers, all this is coming from defense investments. I mean, all this is coming from defense grants. But I think things have now changed. Now, a lot of things can move from, a lot of things have developed in the commercial space, possibly the startup, the energies. I mean, Google has come on his own. A lot of artificial intelligence work is actually now happening in the private space. So I think all these gains can move from this space to defense. So I think that is where the low hanging fruits would be. Of course, research in materials is always going to be critical, but materials lie at the heart of defense. I mean, they used to say, why can't we design a helicopter? Why can't we design a better aircraft? It all boils down to materials. And a lot of materials are not even available within the country. A lot of rare earths are not available within the country. So it takes a lot of time to develop these materials. Some more low hanging fruits would be, I think, the UAVs, the drones, and the payloads. As part of the Defense India Startup Challenge 1, IIT Delhi incubated startup is doing a payload which is a 100 megapixels camera, digital camera, and it's designing it completely from base up. So it's a huge leap up for us, and now they are planning to scale it up to 1000 megapixels. So that means that if you put it in some pseudo satellite, you can get the complete view of the human hair actually. So that's a huge plus that's going to happen. On the Republic Day, you might have seen this drone show. Again, a low hanging fruit. Initially, we are planning to buy it from some Russia-based company for 10 crores. One show could have costed us 10 crore. We gave them some grant, and now where it is? They done 1000 drones. I think by 15th August, they should be ready with 2000, 5000 drones. So all these algorithms, all these things which come into play in when it comes to tweaking and changing. Again, I think low hanging fruits, possibly. Right? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanjay Jaju, for that encouraging speech. Make in India in the defense sector is one of the priority sectors of Government of India, and the need of the hour is to build an AatmaNirbharta in the defense sector as well. I would request my team to kindly present a speaker memento to our speaker, Mr. Sanjay Jaju, Additional Secretary Defense Production.